Hello children, welcome back. In this video, we will be learning how landforms are formed, and under that we will be learning work of a river, sea waves, wind and ice. Exogenic forces, major landforms. Children, do you all know how landforms are formed? Yes, the landscape is being continuously worn away by two processes, that is weathering and erosion. So in class 6 we have already learned about weathering and erosion. So what is weathering? Yeah, weathering is the breaking up of the rocks on the earth's surface, and erosion is the wearing away of the landscape by different agents like water, wind and ice. The eroded material is carried away or transported by water, wind, etc. and eventually deposited. So this process of erosion and deposition create different landforms on the surface of the earth. So under exogenic forces, we will be learning about river, wind, sea waves and glaciers. So work of a river. So under work of a river, you will be learning about meanders, oxbow lake, floodplain, leaves, and you also will be learning about how the waterfalls are formed. So the running water in the river erodes the landscape. So do you all know how waterfall is formed? Yes, when the river tumbles at steep angle over very hard rocks or down a steep valley side, it forms a waterfall. As the river enters the plain, it twists and turns, forming large bends known as meanders. So due to continuous erosion and deposition along the sides of the meander, the ends of the meander loop come closer and closer. The meander loop cuts off from the river and forms a cut-off lake, also called an oxbow lake. At times, the river overflows its banks. So this leads to the flooding of the neighboring areas. As it floods, it deposits layers of fine soil and other material called sediments along its bank. So this leads to the formation of a flat, fertile flood plain. The raised banks are called leaves. As the river approaches the sea, the speed of the flowing water decreases and the river begins to break up into a number of streams called distributaries. The river becomes so slow that it begins to deposit its load. Each distributary forms its own mouth. The collection of sediments from all the mouths forms a delta. Do you know there are thousands of small waterfalls in the world? The highest waterfall is Angel Falls of Peninsula in South America. The other waterfalls are Niagara Falls, located on the border between Canada and USA in North America, and Victoria Falls on the borders of Zambia and Zimbabwe in Africa. Work of sea waves. So under this you will come to know what is sea caves, sea arches, stacks and sea cliff. The erosion and deposition of the sea waves gives rise to coastal landforms. Sea waves continuously strike at the rocks. Cracks develop. Over time they become larger and wider. Thus, hollow-like caves are formed on the rocks. They are called sea caves. As these cavities become bigger and bigger, only the roof of the caves remains, thus forming sea arches. Further, erosion breaks the roof and only walls are left. So these walls-like features are called stacks. The steep rocky coast rising almost vertically above seawater is called sea cliff. The sea waves deposit sediments along the shores, forming beaches. Work of ice. So under this you will be learning what is glaciers, moraines. Glaciers. So we have already learned about glaciers. So glaciers are rivers of ice which too erode the landscape by bulldozing soil and stones to expose the solid rock below. Glaciers carves out deep hollows there. As the ice melts, they get filled up with water and become beautiful lakes in the mountains. The material carried by the glaciers such as rocks, big and small sand and silt gets deposited. So these deposits form glacial moraines. work of wind. So you will be learning about sand dunes and loose. Wind erode the lower section of the rock more than the upper part. So therefore such rocks have narrow base and wider top. When the wind blows, it lifts and transports sand from one place to another. When it stops blowing, the sand falls and gets deposited in low hill-like structures. So these are called sand dunes. When the grains of sand are very fine and light, the wind can carry it over very long distances. When such sand is deposited in large areas, it is called loess. Large deposits of loess is found in China. I hope you all understood how waterfalls and landforms are formed and also understood what is meant as oxbow lake, floodplain, sea caves, sea arches, sea cliff, stocks, sand dunes. Thank you.